So in a previous video, I built this little ITX in the Fractal Node 202. It's a Ryzen 5 3600, a GTX 1070, 16 megs, nope, not megs, definitely not megs, 16 gigs of memory, and what else did it have? And it had a 512 M.2. Computer ran fantastic, very happy with it. And in the previous video, I had titled it, My Wife Kicked Me Out. My wife kicked me out, so I built this computer. And the little story behind that. See, as the missus and the family, they're growing, they want to play in the living room. They want to play their games, watch their shows, do their stuff. And when I'm sitting there hogging it up, playing all my games and stuff, it's not fair to them. So the missus made a suggestion, hey, go ahead and, use the bedroom. And I did. So I built this computer. So guys, if you're having issues with your wife, go ahead and build yourself a computer. It could save your marriage. That's my advice. So anyways, so after using it for about 2-3 weeks, like I said, it runs fantastic, but the temperatures on it are a little warm. And that's one of the common issues that you have with ITX build. You have to use smaller coolers, it's a smaller area, so you really can't use the fancy big coolers, AIOs. Some cases can accommodate AIOs. And then the other issue that you can do too to kind of help accommodate it is the undervolting. But we haven't gotten that far. Kind of want to just mess with things as is. So this is what we're going to do today. So I'm running the Noctua LH91, I don't know, all these freaking serial numbers and everything. They get a little intense on a guy, kind of messes with his brain. So I've been running this cooler and did a stress test doing IE to 64. It's been running for about 35 minutes and the highest my temp has got is 88 degrees Celsius. Haven't hit no thermal throttling, but the issue with this is that right now I'm in my garage. It's 64 degrees Fahrenheit. So I can imagine the house where it's a little warmer, I might hit that thermal throttle. Not sure. But either way, the fans start ramping up at 100%. This 88 degrees in a cooler environment is definitely no bueno. So I want to see what I can do to make it better. So a lot of you guys commented on that video, some suggestions for a better cooler, and the one that kept on popping up was this one, the ID Cooling IS60, LS60 Evo. I'm not sure if it's a Lexus IS60 or an LS1 GM crate motor, or it might even be a Mitsubishi Evo. But either way, it's a low profile cooler, and according to you guys, it's supposed to be better for this case, provide better cooling, and it's supposed to fit. So we're gonna give it a shot and see what it does. Like I said, 88 degrees Celsius is a little warm, especially in a cooler environment in my garage, so it's gonna be warmer in the bedroom, and hopefully this will give me some better cooling, thermals, lower the fan, make it a little more pleasing to the ear. Noctua fans are great because even at high RPM, the noise level is actually not terrible to the ear. But some of these cheaper fans, not saying that this one's cheaper, they do good at cooling, but the noise can be agitating. So let's open it up. Destructions. Brackets. Even has its own thermal paste. And like I said, it's got RGB. RGB makes everything faster, more frames per second, so you definitely got to have that. So I know this is definitely going to make my computer faster because of the RGB. Let's see. 3-pin, 4-pin. Oh, I didn't even know this. Has a fan on the bottom and a fan on the top. Well, obviously on the top, but 2 fans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heat pipes. And I'll take a look at that Noctua to see how many heat pipes it has. And hopefully we shouldn't have any clearance issues. So let's go ahead and shift to the Fractal Node. I'm going to go ahead, take it apart, take out that Noctua cooler. I'm not going to bore you with that. And if you guys want to see opening, disassembly, and installation of that cooler, I'll put a link to that video. So let's move over there. So I got to point this out about this case, and it's something that's kind of dumb and annoying. So I got to take out the cooler, right? The screws are in the back, right? But you got access to these 2 screws, and you don't have access to these 2 screws. Definitely retarded and annoying. It's like, really? I mean, could they just not just created a little spot just so you could get those screws? No, that would make sense. So yes, I'm venting. So if you have this case and you got to change the cooler, the whole motherboard has to come out. Great. Just something simple would have fixed that. But anyways, let me do that and then we'll go back to the new cooler. So this is the old Noctua and it's small. I think it just only has like 2 heat pipes if I'm not mistaken there, but this one is definitely beefier-ish. Fans are about the same height. I mean, even the heatsink, well, this heatsink is slightly, I mean, negligible probably at best, but slightly bigger. has more heat pipes, has the fan on the bottom. So curious to see how this thing performs. I mean, if you look at the size comparison, now I would have loved to use the Scythe Shuriken 3. I actually use that on my X299 test bench, primarily because it's not for overclocking, it's just for testing. But that one is just way too big and you can't really fit in the case. But from what I understand is, as long as you don't use the dust filter, which I don't use, you should be able to use this without any issue. So let's put this thing together. Alright, not too bad. Definitely bigger, beefier, and the one cool thing I do like about it is that I do have clearance for the memory, for taller memory, but we're going to swap that out, and I'll show you in just a sec what memory we're going to use. Still going to be the same memory speed, timings, all that stuff, XMP enabled, so that's not going to change. I'm just changing the look, primarily because I was not a fan of those thermal take RGBs and just the style. So let's go ahead and pop this in, and let's just make sure we got clearance. So as to be expected, pushing it down, it's not going to clear. And here's the issue with this case. And if you look, you see all these this raised part, and this is where the filter sits. So what I'm going to probably do is take a Dremel and just Dremel this out. Like I said, I am not going to use the filter. If I want to use the filter, maybe I'll put some adhesive to hold it later on, but I'm not going to use the filter for this. I'm going to Dremel this out, and then this should close. Guess I can't return it now, can I? That should be enough. I actually got this little piece over here. Sometimes you gotta be ruthless. Yep, that worked perfectly. So now it's sitting, it's flush. Yep, I can put the screws in, the holes line up, so now we're good to go. Well, when everything boots in an ITX build, which is a pain in the butt to take apart, that is a sigh of relief. She's up and running and doesn't look too bad. Definitely like this white memory over here. Black would be ideal, but you know what? It doesn't have that weird RGB look that the Thermaltake has. Of course, this fan is beefy, it fits fine, and the cooler is nice and quiet. And here's the best part. So at idle, and I think I posted a picture earlier in the first one, I think it was spiking to 47. I think I was in the mid 30s to 40s. On idle, and the temperature hasn't changed in my area, we're at 28.3 degrees, 28 degrees on idle Celsius, spikes 36.6. So far a pretty good improvement. I would say at least a 10 degree improvement in idle, and I will say it is really quiet. So that's a plus. So now let's go ahead and let's run AIDA 64. Let that run for about 15-20 minutes, maybe a little longer. We'll see. Sometimes I forget that the computer is running. And when we come back, we'll see if this thing is really to be considered the Noctua Slayer. And we'll talk about all that. So after a couple of heat cycles, a couple of test runs running for about 30 minutes to 40 minutes in between there, we're sitting at 74.3 degrees Celsius compared to the 88, and even one spike to 90 on a couple of one of the tests that I did with the Noctua. That's a huge improvement, 14 to 15 degrees. So with that being said, with that, we can actually lower the RPMs of the fan, put a nicer fan curve with a little quieter, because we have some headroom. I'm not trying to do any overclocking by no means with this, but I could at least go for a quieter gaming experience. Now the other thing that I could benefit for is actually undervolting, which I might undervolt it just slightly and just lower the fan curve just to kind of give it cooler. But yeah, this cooler is definitely better than that Noctua, but there's something to consider. Now when you look into comparison to how full that cooler fills the case and compared to this one, yeah, significantly smaller heat sink. I think it's only 2 heat pipes. So yeah, in defense of this little cooler, it is smaller compared to that one, so it's not too fair to compare, but I think for this type of case, this is actually going to be the better cooler to go, as we're able to get better temperatures with a little undervolting and a better fan curve. We can actually get a quieter computing experience. So ID cooling for the win. With a little modding, you can use it for the Fractal Node 202. It works fine, it works good, just have to Dremel that out. But when you put it in, it's not pushing on the case, it's not bulging, it's just barely sitting, touching on it. So that works pretty good. So now if you look at the price, Noctua is going for about $54.95, and this one is going for $44.99. And when you look at the price to performance, it's actually a better deal, and you can make it work in this case. So yeah, I have to admit, it's no brainer, ID cooling. But like I said earlier, the Noctua is significantly smaller, so it's a trade up to say the least. And now for the last piece of the puzzle. Goodbye Noctua badge. Although the badge is nice quality. Hello ID cooling badge, which will now go on my case. Which is quite interesting when you think about it, because the Noctua badge is bigger, but it's a smaller cooler. This is a smaller badge, but a bigger cooler. So comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Any other coolers that you think that would be pretty good for it right now? I think that's the best one that will be able to fit in there. Very impressed with the performance. Better fan curve, maybe slight undervolting would definitely make this thing quiet. But even at idle compared to the Noctua, it's a no-brainer on that one. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not. And as always, we'll see what we come up with next.